With every season of Destiny 2, we get a new sandbox update, and this is meant to balance things, bring things back online, and shake up the metagame. And usually, when seeing the next patch notes or the patch note preview, like we have seen for some of the weapon changes, I pick a weapon that I think is going to be the breakout weapon of next meta. Basically, a weapon that I see a lot of potential for and could definitely be meta impactful for next season. And this next season, I think Suros Regime is going to be the weapon to look out for. So in the patch note preview that was released talking about some of the weapon changes, we saw some buffs to auto rifles except for the high impact 360 RPM archetype. So this means the other ones like the precisions 450 RPM, the adaptive 600 RPM, and the rapid fire 720 RPM are getting some significant buffs. Of all of them though, the adaptive frame 600 RPM autos seem to be getting the biggest buff to their default or base time to kill as well as their precision time to kill. Suros Regime is an auto rifle that belongs to two different archetypes at the same time, and that's simply because you can use it with its spinning up mode or dual speed receiver. Dual speed receiver is the 360 RPM version, while spinning up keeps it at its base 600 RPM but ramps up over time, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So in my opinion, the 600 RPM version, because of the insane buffs coming, is going to be very, very strong. In fact, I think that the 600 RPM auto rifles and the 360s, the high impact, have been just on the cusp of being very competitive. If you've actually tried one of these weapons, whether it be a legendary 600 RPM or even Monte Carlo, Hardlight since the changes, or Suros Regime itself, you've probably noticed that they're not actually that bad. They have the potential to really melt targets pretty quickly, but of course still have the inherent flaws of an auto rifle, especially when going against a hand cannon. And I think this considerable TTK buff for the 600 RPMs is going to potentially allow them to compete with hand cannons simply because of the shots it will take to kill being pretty low and giving you a pretty good optimal time to kill. So we're about to talk about the time to kill of Suros Regime and how the buff is actually going to impact that, but just so everyone's clear from the patch notes itself, the adaptive frame buff is going to take them from 22 damage currently to the head to 25.2 damage, and then 13.75 damage currently to the body to 15.75 damage. So that's a pretty considerable damage buff. So let's talk about Suros Regime's time to kill now, starting with its current time to kill in the game right now, pre-buff. So right now in the best case scenario, it takes 9 critical hits to kill with Suros Regime. And when spinning up, your first 12 bullets when holding the trigger will start at 600 RPM. If you continue firing after those first 12 bullets, it'll ramp up to 720 RPM. And if you continue to fire without letting go of the trigger, it'll ramp up to 900 RPM for the last 12 bullets. So what does this mean for our time to kill? So this means with 9 critical hits to kill at 600 RPM, you're going to have an optimal time to kill of 0.8 seconds. This is the base standard optimal time to kill of Suros Regime. But when it ramps up to 720 RPM, you're going to have a 0.67 second optimal time to kill. And at 900 RPM, with those same 9 crits to kill, for your final 12 bullets, you'll have a potential 0.53 second time to kill, which is pretty insane. But I know you're probably thinking that this is just all on paper, and the odds that you're beaming someone at 900 RPM is pretty low, to be honest, especially against a good player. However, a predicted kind of mixed time to kill that would be transitioning between 600 and 720 RPM, which I do think is regularly possible, would be roughly 0.73 seconds in terms of optimal time to kill. This is easily done by just holding the trigger down while sliding around a corner and pre-firing and acquiring your target, because you're getting the weapon spun up already by pre-firing, and then by the time you see your target, you're probably going to be at the low end of the 600 RPM portion in those 12 bullets and approaching or starting these 720 RPM bullets. So you're probably going to get a combined kind of TTK between the two of 0.73 seconds in terms of if you hit all headshots. Now, if you think that has potential, let's talk now about the post-patch predicted numbers in terms of time to kill. So I believe with 25.2 damage to the head, and we said 15.75 damage to the body, it's going to actually be able to kill in 8 critical hits against pretty much any resilience and 12 body shots against a predicted 3 resilience. So our 8 critical hits or 12 body shots to kill at 600 RPM gives us a 0.7 optimal time to kill without spinning up active, which is crazy, and a 1.10 second base time to kill, again without spinning up even applied yet. Those are some crazy numbers for both optimal and base time to kill. It is very, very forgiving if you were to only hit body shots, really not bad, pretty competitive overall, and if you hit your headshots, you're probably going to melt someone pretty quickly. But those same shots to kill at 720 RPM give us a 0.58 second optimal time to kill and 0.92 second base time to kill. Again, very crazy potential on both our optimal time to kill and base time to kill. But of course it doesn't end there, because at 900 RPM, that gives us just the insanity of a 0.47 second optimal time to kill and 0.74 second base time to kill. And again, I know these are all on paper examples, so trying to predict us pre-firing and kind of transitioning between 600 RPM and 720 RPM, I would say that this is going to give us roughly a 0.63 second optimal time to kill, with 4 shots fired at 600 RPM and our last 4 shots fired at 720 RPM. Which again is some crazy potential. Aside from time to kill, I think Suros Regime also has an overall great stat package. It might not be a master of really anything in particular, but it certainly is a jack of all trades, with 60 range, 62 stability, 68 handling, and 68 aim assist, with its 100 recoil direction if of course you have the catalyst. Compared to other exotics like Monte Carlo, which has less range with 55, higher stability with 68, higher handling with 82, but much lower aim assist with 50, and 80 recoil direction, of course less than the Suros Regime's 100. Hardlight's another great thing to compare to, with 46 range, 69 stability, 75 handling, 100 aim assist, and 100 recoil direction. I don't really think there's many 600 RPM autos in the legendary category that really compare to Suros Regime's stat package. The only one I'd say, and I actually happen to have a roll of it, is the Gnawing Hunger. But staying in our weight class here, how does Suros Regime then compare to Monte Carlo or Hardlight? Hardlight obviously seemingly has better stats than Suros Regime. Its 46 range, yes, is important because obviously it doesn't get damage drop off, which mitigates that a bit, but it still affects its accuracy cone, which is really important over range for landing shots consistently. Otherwise though, it still has the ability to make up for one dimension of its range stat, which is pretty good considering in every other category it has things like 69 stability, high handling, 75 handling, high aim assist with 100 aim assist, and of course high recoil direction for that consistency. And since the buff and catalyst to Hardlight, its screen shake is honestly pretty bearable. You can control it. It's pretty consistent now. I probably couldn't fault you, and I'd most likely have to agree with you if you made the claim that Hardlight is the most consistent 600 RPM auto. And on the other side of things, we have Monte Carlo, which doesn't have as good stats. It has great stats, things like its stability and handling are fantastic, but definitely lacks in range, aim assist, and recoil direction compared to our other two exotic autos. The thing is here is Monte Carlo has a lethality perk. It has a swashbuckler style perk, which again can be very, very lethal on this weapon archetype, especially after the buffs. And on top of that, it does give you the opportunity to get your melee charge back, which again accelerates your potential lethality. If someone were to make the claim that Monte Carlo is the most lethal 600 RPM auto, yeah, I would probably agree with that too. But where does that leave Suros Regime? In my opinion, Suros Regime is the best middle ground of consistency, lethality, and potential. Because of its good all-around stat package, again, it doesn't have a lot of anything per se, but it has a really good amount of everything, which really adds to its consistency in terms of the way it feels. It has spinning up, which again isn't a direct lethality boost that you just again simply get for a certain amount of time like Swashbuckler after getting a kill, but you can activate for free at any time. Again, simply sliding around and pre-firing your targets can get you a slightly faster time to kill for no cost essentially. And spinning up definitely has a similar potential for crowd control like Rampage or Swashbuckler would have if you're taking on multiple targets. So again, Hardlight has better stats, but Suros Regime still has great stats, but Hardlight doesn't have any sort of lethal bonus to it. Monte Carlo has worse stats, but it has a lot of lethality potential to it. Suros Regime has really good stats and some pretty good peak potential in terms of its lethality, which is why it's my pick of the auto rifles and my pick for a meta breakout weapon for this next season, and will certainly have a spot in my loadout. We'll see how this prediction turns out, and we'll see which auto rifle proves itself to be the best pick, and most importantly, if they'll be able to compete in any degree against hand cannons, which are the most versatile weapon at the moment. Anyways, I hope this discussion on the Suros Regime was enjoyable. I'd love to hear what your pick is for the breakout weapon of next meta potentially. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you'd like to see more content like this, you can check me out on Twitch. I stream pretty frequently, so I hope to see you there. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.